Ladies and gentlemen, what if the life you dream about is not waiting somewhere in the future? What if it is waiting behind a version of you that you are too afraid to become? And what if the greatest obstacle standing between you and everything you want is not poverty, not bad luck, not failure, not your past, not your circumstances, but the person you have learned to be? That is a frightening thought, because it means you cannot simply blame the world anymore. It means that somewhere beneath your excuses, beneath your disappointments, beneath the stories you tell yourself about why you cannot, there is another voice whispering a dangerous truth. You are capable of more. And perhaps that is why so many people run from themselves. Because when you truly meet yourself, you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer pretend that your life is entirely the result of what happened to you. You begin to see that your life is also being shaped by what you tolerate, what you repeat, what you fear, what you believe, what you choose, and what you refuse to confront. This is where the secret of success begins. Not in a bank account, not in a title, not in applause, not in followers, not in possessions, not even in talent. The secret of success begins in the invisible world inside you. There is a battlefield inside every human being. One side says, stay safe. The other says, grow. One side says, what if you fail? The other asks, what if you never try? One voice remembers every rejection you have ever experienced. Another voice remembers every possibility you have not yet explored. One wants comfort. The other wants meaning. And your life, whether you realize it or not, is shaped by which voice you obey most often. We live in a world obsessed with external results. We look at the successful person and see the car. We see the house. We see the stage. We see the awards. We see the confidence. We see the finished product. But we rarely see the nights when that person doubted everything. We do not see the mornings when getting out of bed felt like a battle. We do not see the opportunities they lost. We do not see the people who laughed at them. We do not see the doors that closed. We do not see the years when nobody believed in them. We see the mountaintop and forget that every mountaintop is built from 1,000 steps. Nobody applauded. There is a strange human tendency to worship outcomes while ignoring transformation. We want the successful life, but we do not always want the successful character. We want the harvest, but not the season of planting. We want strength without struggle. We want wisdom without suffering. We want confidence without uncertainty. We want victory without discipline. But life does not work that way. The world does not give you the person you need to become, and then hand you the life you want. Life gives you challenges that force you to become that person. That is the secret. Success is not merely something you achieve. Success is someone you become. Think about the seed. A seed looks insignificant. If you hold it in your hand, you may wonder what it could possibly become. But buried within that tiny object is a blueprint for something magnificent. Yet the seed cannot become a tree by remaining comfortable. It must be buried. It must enter darkness. It must split open. To an observer, this looks like destruction. but to the seed, it is transformation. And many moments in your life have felt exactly like that. You lost something. A relationship ended. A business failed. An opportunity disappeared. Someone you trusted betrayed you. You were rejected. You were overlooked. You worked hard and still lost. You did everything you knew to do. And somehow things still fell apart. At the time, you thought, this is the end. But perhaps it was not the end. Perhaps it was the burial. Perhaps life was not destroying you. Perhaps life was breaking the shell around the person you were, so that the person you could become could finally emerge. We often ask, why is this happening to me? But perhaps the deeper question is, what is this trying to develop in me? That question changes everything. Because pain becomes information. Failure becomes instruction. Rejection becomes redirection. Loneliness becomes reflection. Difficulty becomes training. And the obstacle becomes a teacher. This does not mean that suffering is automatically good. Pain is painful. Loss is loss. There are experiences that leave scars. There are seasons when you will cry and have no words for what you feel. There are moments when you will question whether you have the strength to continue. But strength is not the absence of those moments. Strength is what happens when you continue despite them. The human being becomes powerful, not because life becomes easy, but because the human being becomes deeper. There is a kind of success that money can buy, and there is another kind that money cannot touch. The first gives you comfort. The second gives you character. The first can make your life look impressive. The second makes your life meaningful. And if you gain everything in the world, but lose your sense of self, what exactly have you won? There are people who have achieved extraordinary things while remaining strangers to themselves. They climbed the ladder only to discover that it was leaning against the wrong wall. They became wealthy, but remained empty. They became famous, but remained insecure. They became powerful, but remained afraid. They collected achievements while quietly losing themselves. That is not the success I am talking about. I am talking about a success that begins when you stop living merely to impress people and start living according to what you know is true. That requires courage, because the world will always try to tell you who to be. Your family may have expectations. Your friends may have opinions. Society may have definitions. Social media may constantly show you what your life supposedly should look like. You will be told what success looks like, what beauty looks like, what wealth looks like, what happiness looks like, what relationships look like, what achievement looks like. And before long, you can become so busy chasing an image of success that you forget to ask whether the image actually belongs to you. There is a great danger in living according to someone else's definition of a meaningful life. You can spend your entire existence climbing toward a destination you never truly wanted. So ask yourself, what do I actually want? Not what will make me look successful. Not what will make my parents proud. Not what will make strangers admire me. Not what will make my enemies jealous. What do I actually want? That question can be terrifying, because authentic answers often come with responsibility. Once you know what matters to you, you have to act. And action is where dreams become expensive. It is easy to say you want greatness. It is much harder to wake up early when nobody is watching. It is easy to say you want to become a leader. It is much harder to take responsibility when things go wrong. It is easy to say you want financial freedom. It is much harder to control your impulses when immediate pleasure is available. It is easy to say you want to be healthy. It is much harder to make disciplined choices when nobody would know if you didn't. Successes is built in private. The world sees the result. You live the process. And the process is often boring. Let us be honest about that. Most success stories are not made of constant excitement. They are made of repetition. Ride the book, practice again. Make the call, drop the next page. Study 1 more hour, go to the gym. Apologize, try again. Save a little more. Learn another skill. Get rejected. Improve, wake up, continue, and then repeat. That is where the magic happens. Not because repetition itself is glamorous, but because repetition transforms effort into identity. At first, discipline feels like something you are forcing yourself to do. Eventually, it becomes something you simply do. At first, courage is a decision. Eventually, courage becomes character. At first, patience is a struggle. Eventually, patience becomes your nature. This is why success is deeper than motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation says, I feel like doing this. Discipline says, I committed to this. Motivation can get you started. Discipline keeps you going when the excitement disappears. And the excitement always disappears. There will be days when you do not feel inspired. There will be mornings when your dreams seem distant. There will be weeks when your progress appears invisible. You will work and see no immediate results. You will plant and see no harvest. That is where people quit. Not because they are incapable, because they have mistaken invisibility for failure. But roots grow in darkness. For a long time, the tree appears to be doing nothing. Yet underneath the surface, everything is happening. The same is true of your life. Some of the most important work you will ever do will produce no applause. Nobody will congratulate you for refusing to give up. Nobody will give you a trophy for waking up and trying again after disappointment. Nobody may ever know how many times you fought with your own mind and chose courage over fear. But you will know. And one day, the world may see the result of battles they never knew you fought. That day, people may call you lucky. Let them. They did not see the preparation. They did not see the sacrifice. They did not see the lonely nights. They did not see you questioning yourself and continuing anyway. They did not see the version of you that had nothing but belief. Never confuse someone's visible success with the absence of invisible struggle. Every person you admire has paid a price. The question is not whether success has a price. The question is, are you willing to pay yours? Maybe your price is comfort. Maybe it is approval. Maybe it is procrastination. Maybe it is the need to be perfect. Maybe it is the addiction to distraction. Maybe it is your fear of criticism. Maybe it is your attachment to a version of yourself that no longer fits the life you are trying to create. Sometimes the thing holding you back is not a lack of ability. It is an old identity. You keep saying, "I am not confident. I am not disciplined. I am not smart. I always mess things up. I am just unlucky. I have always been this way." Listen carefully to that language. When you repeatedly say, "This is who I am," you can accidentally turn a temporary behavior into a permanent identity. But you are not a finished product. You are a living process. Your history is real, but it is not necessarily your destiny. Your past explains you. It does not have to imprison you. There are things you inherited from your environment. Beliefs you absorbed as a child. Fears you learned before you could question them. Patterns you copied without realizing it. Some of these patterns may have protected you once. But what protected you yesterday can imprison you tomorrow. Maybe you learned to stay silent because speaking up once brought punishment. Maybe you learned not to trust because trust once brought betrayal. Maybe you learned to avoid risks because failure was ridiculed. Maybe you learned to shrink because standing out felt dangerous. And now you are an adult, living inside defenses that were built for a world you no longer inhabit. This is why self-awareness matters. You cannot change what you refuse to see. The hidden parts of yourself still influence your choices. The fear you deny may control your decisions. The insecurity you hide may determine which opportunities you pursue. The anger you never acknowledge may shape your relationships. The shame you refuse to confront may make you sabotage your own progress. Your unconscious does not disappear simply because you ignore it. It waits. It communicates through patterns, through repeated mistakes, through strange reactions, through the same kind of relationship, ending in the same way, through the same opportunity, arriving and being rejected by you, for reasons you cannot fully explain. So, perhaps one of the deepest forms of success is becoming conscious of the forces within you that once operated unconsciously. Know yourself. Not the version of yourself you present to the world. Now the person behind the performance. Now what frightens you. Now what makes you jealous. Know what makes you angry. Now what you envy. Now what you avoid. Now what you deeply desire. Now what you pretend not to care about. Because the parts of yourself you refuse to face do not vanish. They become shadows. And the shadow follows you. But there is something powerful about turning toward your shadow instead of running from it. You may discover that behind your fear is a need. Behind your anger is pain. Behind your jealousy is an unfulfilled desire. Behind your perfectionism is terror of being judged. Behind your procrastination may be fear of finding out what happens if you genuinely try. Imagine that. You thought you were lazy, but perhaps you were afraid. You thought you lacked confidence. Perhaps you lacked permission to fail. You thought you had no ambition. Perhaps you had spent years chasing goals that never belonged to you. Understanding yourself changes the game, because once you can see the pattern, you can interrupt the pattern. And once you can interrupt the pattern, you can choose. Choice is freedom. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you can influence what you do with what happens. That is where your power lives. People often wait for perfect circumstances before they act. They say, when I have more money, when I have more time, when I feel confident, when people support me, when my situation improves. But confidence rarely comes before action. Confidence is often the result of action. You do not become brave and then act. You act, and through acting, you discover that you can survive being afraid. The first presentation may terrify you. The first business may fail. The first book may be rejected. The first attempt may be embarrassing. But every attempt teaches your nervous system a powerful lesson. I can do difficult things. That lesson compounds. One courageous act makes the next one more possible. One disciplined choice makes another easier. One boundary strengthens another. One rejection survived teaches you that rejection is survivable. One failure endured proves that failure is not fatal. And eventually, the person who once asked, "What if I fail?" begins asking a different question. What if I succeed? That is a dangerous question, because success creates responsibility. If you succeed, you can no longer blame your potential on circumstances. You have to use it. The world is full of people with unrealized potential. People who could have written, people who could have built, people who could have led, people who could have served, people who could have created, people who could have loved more deeply, people who could have changed their families, people who could change their communities. But potential means nothing without participation. You can have the greatest seed in the world, but if you never plant it, it remains only potential. You can possess extraordinary talent, but if you do not develop it, talent becomes a story about what you could have been. Do not die with your music still inside you. Do not become an old person haunted by the question, what would have happened if I had tried? There are few regrets more painful than knowing you abandoned yourself before life ever had the chance to surprise you. You are going to fail. You should understand that now. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to embarrass yourself. You are going to make decisions that later look foolish. You are going to trust the wrong person. You are going to choose badly sometimes. You are going to lose. And none of that disqualifies you from success. In fact, it may be required. The person who has never failed has usually never pushed far enough. Failure is feedback. It tells you where the structure is weak. It shows you where your skill needs improvement. It reveals where your assumptions were wrong. It exposes your impatience. It teaches humility. It forces adaptation. Success is rarely a straight line. It is a conversation between action and correction. Try, learn, adjust, try again. That is the rhythm. There is an ancient idea that transformation often requires the death of an old identity. You cannot become the next version of yourself while clinging desperately to every part of the previous one. At some point, something must be released. Maybe it is an excuse. Maybe it is a relationship. Maybe it is a habit. Maybe it is your attachment to being right. Maybe it is your need for everybody to understand you. Maybe it is your fear of looking foolish. Maybe it is your obsession with perfection. Let it go. You cannot carry everything and still climb. At certain moments in life, You must decide what is more important: being comfortable or being transformed. And transformation is uncomfortable. There will be moments when your old self is begging you to return. The old routine will feel familiar. The old excuses will feel safe. The old identity will say, "At least you knew how to live there." But growth has no guarantee of comfort. There is a season in every meaningful life where you must walk into uncertainty, carrying nothing but faith in your ability to learn. That is courage. Not the absence of fear, the willingness to move while fear is present. Understand this. You do not need to know the entire path. You only need to take the next honest step. The future is not asking you to solve everything today. It is asking you to begin. One step, one page, one phone call, one application, one workout, one conversation, one apology, one decision, one disciplined morning, one brave no, one courageous yes. One moment at a time. The architecture of your life is built. Do not underestimate small actions. A life can change in a moment, but usually it changes because of what you do repeatedly after that moment. Your habits are votes for the person you are becoming. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build self-trust. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken it. That is why discipline is deeper than productivity. Discipline is how you learn to trust yourself. And self-trust is one of the greatest forms of freedom. When you trust yourself, you no longer need constant external validation. You know you can handle difficulty. You know you can recover. You know you can learn. You know that even when life knocks you down, you will get up. That changes everything. Because now the world becomes less terrifying. Not because the world became safer. Because you became stronger. There will still be uncertainty. There will still be injustice. There will still be loss. There will still be things you cannot control. But you will know who you are in the middle of uncertainty. And perhaps that is a greater gift than certainty itself. You do not need a life without storms. You need an inner compass. You need values. You need a reason to keep going. You need something bigger than temporary emotions. Because your emotions will change. Some mornings you will feel unstoppable. Other mornings you will feel like giving up. Do not build your life around a feeling that cheese every few hours. Build it around principles. Decide what you stand for. Decide what matters. Decide what kind of person you want to be when nobody is watching. Then let your actions answer that question. Character is what remains when motivation leaves. And there will be times when success looks nothing like success. You may be studying while everyone else is celebrating. You may be saving while everyone else is spending. You may be building while everyone else is scrolling. You may be healing while everyone else thinks you are falling behind. You may be saying no while everyone else says yes. You may be working quietly while someone less prepared appears to be passing you. Do not panic. A tree does not become smaller because another tree grows faster. Your journey has its own season. Comparing your beginning to someone else's middle will destroy your peace. The modern world makes comparison almost effortless. Every day, you are shown someone else's highlight reel, their achievements, their vacations, their relationships, their bodies, their businesses, their milestones. And if you are not careful, you begin to measure your real life against someone else's edited life. Stop. Your path is not late. Your timeline is not defective. Your growth is not invalid, because someone else arrived first. The only person you truly need to surpass is the version of yourself that keeps choosing less than you are capable of becoming. That is your competition. Not your neighbor, not your colleague, not the stranger online. You. Who were you yesterday? And who are you today? Are you stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more honest, more courageous, more compassionate, more focused, more alive? Then you are winning. Success is not always a spectacular event. Sometimes success is subtle. Sometimes it is the first day you stop hating yourself. Sometimes it is the moment you set a boundary. Sometimes it is the day you forgive yourself. Sometimes it is choosing not to repeat what wounded you. Sometimes it is getting back up. Sometimes it is asking for help. Sometimes it is saying, I don't know, but I am willing to learn. Do not overlook these victories. They are evidence of transformation. And here is another secret. You do not have to become extraordinary to have an extraordinary life. You have to become fully present in your own life. A parent who gives love with intention is succeeding. A teacher who changes one child's future is succeeding. A builder who creates something useful is succeeding. A friend who stays when others leave is succeeding. A person who breaks a cycle of pain is succeeding. A person who chooses integrity when dishonesty would be easier is succeeding. We live in a culture that celebrates visible achievement. But some of the greatest victories in human life are invisible. The person who decides not to become bitter after being betrayed. The person who chooses hope after grief. The person who chooses discipline after years of chaos. The person who chooses forgiveness without returning to abuse. The person who chooses purpose after disappointment. These are forms of greatness. And perhaps we have misunderstood success because we have confused scale with significance. Something does not need to be famous to be important. Your life does not need to be watched by millions to matter. The room you influence matters. The people you love matter. The example you set matters. The choices you make in silence matter. You may never know how far your courage travels through another person. You may think your small act means nothing, but your words may become someone's reason to keep going. Your persistence may become someone else's proof that persistence is possible. Your transformation may give another person permission to transform. That is legacy, not merely what you leave behind, what you awaken in others. So stop asking only, what can I get? Ask, what can I become? And then ask the deeper question, who can I help because I became that person? That is where success moves from ego to purpose. A life built only around proving yourself eventually becomes exhausting. But a life built around serving something larger than yourself becomes meaningful. Maybe your mission is to build a company. Maybe it is to raise a family. Maybe it is to create art. Maybe it is to solve a problem. Maybe it is to educate Maybe it is to heal. Maybe it is simply to become the first person in your family to break a harmful pattern. Whatever it is, give yourself fully to it. Not perfectly. Fully. Perfection is another form of delay. People wait to be perfect before they begin. But perfection is not the requirement. Presence is. Commitment is. Consistency is. Courage is. The world does not need another perfect person. It needs more honest ones. People willing to say, "I am afraid, and I will go anyway. I do not know, and I will learn. I failed, and I will begin again. I was wrong, and I will change. I am hurt, and I will heal. I am tired, and I will rest. But I will not surrender." That is power. Real power is not domination. It is mastery of self. It is the ability to sit with discomfort without immediately escaping. It is the ability to delay gratification. It is the ability to hear criticism without collapsing. It is the ability to hear praise without becoming addicted to it. It is the ability to remain grounded when the world celebrates you and when it ignores you. Because both applause and silence are temporary. Your character is what remains. And when you finally understand this, you stop chasing success as an object. You begin building a life capable of containing it. Because what is the point of gaining success if you do not have the emotional strength to sustain it? What is the point of becoming wealthy if your relationships are bankrupt? What is the point of becoming powerful if you cannot control yourself? What is the point of becoming admired if you do not respect the person you see in the mirror? The final destination is not more. It is more meaningful, more depth, more courage, more truth, more purpose, more service, more life. So when you leave this room or finish hearing these words, do not ask yourself whether you feel inspired. Ask yourself what you are going to do. Emotion without action evaporates. Inspiration without implementation becomes entertainment. Do not merely feel moved. Move. Take one thing you have been postponing and begin. Take one fear you have been avoiding and examine it. Take one habit that is destroying your future and interrupt it. Take one dream you have abandoned and give it another hour. 1 hour becomes a day. A day becomes a week. A week becomes a month. A month becomes a year. And a year can become an entirely different life. Do not underestimate what can happen when a human being stops negotiating with the life they know they are capable of living. You may have been told that it is too late. It is not. You may have wasted years. Perhaps you did. But wasted years do not require wasted years ahead. You may have made terrible choices. Learn from them. You may have lost time. Use what remains wisely. You may have been rejected. Let rejection refine you. You may have been underestimated. Let it fuel you. But do not let revenge become your purpose. Your purpose is greater than proving someone wrong. Your purpose is becoming someone you are proud to be. And someday, you will look back. You will remember this version of yourself, the uncertain one, the frightened one, the one who almost quit, the one who kept asking if it was possible. And you will realize something astonishing. You did not need to know everything. You needed to keep going. The life you wanted was not created by one giant miracle. It was created by thousands of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary persistence. You showed up again and again and again, until the impossible became normal. That is how mountains are climbed. That is how businesses are built. That is how relationships are repaired. That is how skills are mastered. That is how wounds are healed. That is how identities are transformed, one choice at a time. So remember the secret. Success is not hiding from you. It is being built inside you. Every difficult day is asking, who are you becoming? Every failure is asking, what will you learn? Every opportunity is asking, will you be brave enough to act? Every setback is asking, will you surrender or adapt? Every morning is asking, will you repeat yesterday or create something new? And every night, whether you realize it or not, your actions are answering. Your life is listening to what you repeatedly tell it. So tell it something powerful. Tell it, I will not abandon myself. I will not allow fear to make every decision for me. I will not confuse comfort with purpose. I will not measure my worth by applause. I will not let one failure define my identity. I will not surrender because the results are taking longer than I expected. I will learn. I will adapt. I will endure. I will grow. And most importantly, I will become. Because there is something inside you that circumstances cannot completely destroy. Something deeper than talent, deeper than money, deeper than status. Something that rises when everything else falls away. Call it courage, call it purpose, call it consciousness, call it spirit, call it the soul. Whatever name you give it, listen to it. Because perhaps the life you have been looking for is not somewhere outside you. Perhaps it is waiting for you to become honest enough to recognize it. Perhaps success is not the moment the world finally sees you. Perhaps success is the moment you finally see yourself. See your fears. See your potential. See your wounds. See your strength. See the patterns. See the possibilities. See the person you have been. And then, with full awareness, choose the person you will become. Ladies and gentlemen, your life is not a rehearsal. There is no guarantee that tomorrow will arrive carrying the opportunity you postponed today. So stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. They may never come. The door may not open by itself. Build one. The road may not appear. Walk, and let your footsteps create it. The confidence may not arrive. Act without it. The fear may not disappear. Carry it. The world may not believe in you. Believe long enough for your actions to become undeniable. And when the day comes, and it will come, when the results finally reflect the person you worked so hard to become, do not be surprised. Because the real victory happened long before anyone applauded. It happened when you chose discipline over distraction. It happened when you chose courage over comfort. It happened when you chose truth over appearance. It happened when you chose growth over ego. It happened when you chose to begin again. And perhaps that is the secret of success. Not that some people are chosen, and others are not. Not that some people receive a magical key. Not that life is always fair. But that there are people who, despite fear, despite failure, despite uncertainty, despite pain, decide again and again to participate fully in their own becoming. They refuse to remain asleep inside their own lives. They wake up. They look inward. They confront the shadow. They accept the challenge. They take responsibility. They build. They fall. They rise. They continue. And eventually, almost quietly, they become. So become. Become the person who keeps promises. Become the person who finishes. Become the person who learns. Become the person who forgives. Become the person who creates. Become the person who leads. Become the person who serves. Become the person who can stand alone without becoming isolated, and stand with others without losing yourself. Become the person your younger self needed. Become the person your future self will thank you for becoming. And when the world asks you what your secret was, perhaps, you will not need a complicated answer. You will simply smile and say, I stopped waiting to become who I was capable of becoming. And that will be the truth. Because the greatest secret was never hidden in the world. It was hidden in you. Now, go and uncover it. Go and face what frightens you. Go and build what you have imagined. Go and discipline what has weakened you. Go and heal what has wounded you. Go and release what no longer belongs to you. Go and become conscious of the life you are creating. Go and make your existence mean something. Not for applause, not for comparison, not for revenge, not even for recognition, but because you were given one extraordinary opportunity to be here. One life, one mind, one story, one chance to take the raw material of your existence and shape it into something meaningful. Do not waste it. Do not sleep through it. Do not hand it over to fear. And when darkness comes, and darkness will come, remember the seed. It does not become a tree by avoiding the darkness. It becomes a tree by growing through it. So grow. Grow through rejection. Grow through uncertainty. Grow through heartbreak. Grow through criticism. Grow through failure. Grow through doubt. Grow through the seasons when nobody notices. Grow anyway. Because one day, people will stand beneath the shade created by the tree you became. And they may never know how much darkness you had to survive to grow. But you will know. And in that moment, the struggle was not proof that you were failing. The struggle was part of the becoming. The silence was not proof that nobody cared. It was where you learned to hear yourself. The delay was not necessarily denial. It was where you learned patience. The failure was not the end. It was where you learned how to build differently. And the greatest secret of all is this: you were never simply chasing success. Success was chasing the person you had the courage to become. Now become that person. And when you do, you will discover that the real reward was never the applause at the finish line. It was the transformation that happened inside you while you were walking toward it. That is the secret. That is the journey. That is the victory. Now take the next step.